Winnie the Pooh's Stories for Christmas by Bruce Talkington, illustrated by John Kurtz. The Bite Before Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, with snow soft and new. Not a creature was stirring, except Winnie the Pooh. The bear of Little Brain was dressed warmly in his favorite flannel nightshirt with its matching cap, topped by a very snazzy red tassel, and was tucked cozily into bed with quilts, blankets, and sheets pulled snugly up under his chin. But his eyes were wide open and staring, because that's what wide open eyes do, and sleep was the last thing on his mind. "Oh, bother," he sighed, and as if to emphasize his restlessness, he immediately followed it with, "Oh, bother, bother." Surprisingly, it wasn't the imminent arrival of Christmas, the tingling anticipation of tomorrow's morning full stocking dangling from the mantel, or the berry-bond presents piled under the tree, that was keeping the bear awake. No, what was bouncing about in the fluff of Pooh's head was the same thing that was bouncing about it at this particular time every night. "A small smackerel of something sweet," smiled Pooh, dreamily smacking his lips. Pooh worked very hard at making sure his honey and his day ran out at the same time, but in the middle of the night, every night, like some sort of internal alarm clock, Pooh Bear's tummy would begin to rumble and growl until the entire bed appeared to be buzzing and vibrating. He tried his best not to notice, knowing that daytime was for eating and nighttime was for sleeping. But this was what Pooh called the hungry part of the night, and there was simply no ignoring it if you were a bear to whom the world was a place where it was always time for breakfast. And a very nice sort of world it is, too, Pooh chuckled as he sat up in bed. Tossing back his covers, Pooh slid out from beneath the bedclothes and dropped feet first into the slippers waiting patiently by the bed. Thumpity-thump, thumpity-thump. The slippers echoed on the hard wooden floors as the bear headed for his favorite part of the house, his favorite part of any house for that matter, the kitchen. There was no need to light a candle or a lamp because a full moon gleamed across the new snow blanketing the wood, making night appear as bright as day. Pooh's face fell, however, at the sight that greeted him upon arriving in the kitchen. It was a most unhappy collection of dirty dishes, soiled silverware, and spotted saucepans. He'd forgotten to remember the mess he'd made, preparing, tasting, baking, tasting again, and packing all the Christmas treats he'd cooked for his friends, treats that they would allow him to help eat after all the presents were unwrapped tomorrow. In the meantime, however, his kitchen was turned inside out, and his pantry was decidedly and undeniably as empty as his stomach. "Oh, my goodness gracious," sighed Pooh, as his tummy emitted such a growl that it set the dishes piled haphazardly into precarious towers rattling in sympathy. "If this is a right dream, I'd like to wake up right now, if that's quite all right with whoever is in charge of dreaming, of course." He closed his eyes for a moment to let the dream disappear, but when he squinted one eye open for a peek and saw that nothing had changed from its former untidiness, he knew a bad dream wasn't a problem. Pooh's head was quite willing to accept this great disappointment and return quietly to bed, but his middle was not being nearly so reasonable. It growled and hummed and gurgled, kicking up such a fuss that Pooh could almost see his tummy churning underneath his nightshirt. "No doubt about it," murmured Pooh. "Someone's going to have to do something about this, and since Pooh Bear, which is me, is the only someone about, I suppose him or me, we are going to be the one to do it." He scrunched his forehead into a frown and scratched his ear fiercely. He was very glad there was only one of him, because counting any higher was not something he did very well. "But what am I to do?" All at once, an idea occurred so quickly that Pooh almost didn't realize what it was. Ideas not being something he was very used to having occur at any time, it was especially disconcerting to have one happen along when he truly needed it. It was so sudden, in fact, and so unexpected that Pooh almost forgot it, even while it was taking place. The only thing that saved it from drifting away to where most of Pooh's ideas disappeared was the simple fact that it involved food. Food was something Pooh's tummy was simply not going to allow him to forget, no matter how stuffed with fluff a bear's head happened to be. What Pooh remembered was a certain snack. When Christmas Eve arrived, everyone was anxious that Santa not go hungry during his long night's work. Rabbit always set out a steaming bowl of his flavorful vegetable stew. Piglet, who could never make up his mind as to what Santa might find the most appetizing, provided a mug of hot cocoa and a list of what was to be found in his very small but well-stocked pantry, along with an invitation for Santa to help himself. Pooh thought a snack was a good idea at any time, even when it wasn't for him. So every Christmas Eve he placed a plate full of home-good gingerbread snowmen and a big glass of frosty milk on the fireplace hearth in expectation of Santa's need for a rest after packing the sack full of most edible presents Pooh was always in hopes of receiving all the way from the North Pole. Thumpity-thump, thumpity-thump, thumpity-thump! Pooh scurried toward the living room, licking his lips in anticipation. He was certain that Santa wouldn't begrudge him one little cookie, perhaps two, and a small sip of cold milk. In less time than it takes to eat a plate of cookies and an empty glass of milk, which is hardly any time at all in Pooh's house. Pooh was sprawled in his favorite armchair, his feet perched comfortably upon the ottoman, an empty glass of milk in one hand, half of the last gingerbread snowman cookie in the other, and a frothy milk mustache under his nose. Needless to say, Pooh was at this moment quite cozy, and his tummy was temporarily, at least, quite satisfied. He leaned his head against the back of the chair and let his mind consider one of the truly important questions in the life of a bear of a little brain. "Why is it," Pooh asked himself while stifling a very insistent yawn, "that we have 2 hands for stuffing honey, but only 1 mouth to stuff?" The only answer that came to him was the prodigious yawn that simply refused stifling. The next thing the bear knew, he was being shaken gently awake by a cold hand. He lifted his sleepy eyelids, and his eyes immediately opened with an amazed pop at what they saw. It was Santa Claus, leaning over Pooh and smiling happily into his face. "Oh," gasped Pooh, because "oh" is what is usually gasped when a surprise takes place. "Pooh Bear," explained Santa, ceasing to shake him, "I certainly am glad to see you. Ho, ho, ho!" "You are?" responded the bear, more than a bit disconcerted, because that's exactly what he was going to say to Santa, except for the ho, ho, ho part, of course. "Oh, my goodness, yes," sighed Santa, in what seemed to be great relief. "In fact, I had just decided my problem was quite important enough to wake you." Santa placed his hand on Pooh's shoulder. "I need your help," he announced solemnly. Pooh's ears instantly pricked up to listen because he knew what needing help was all about. But he thought to himself, how can I possibly help Santa Claus? "It's all these wonderful snacks," answered Santa, as if Pooh had asked the question aloud. "Everyone has thoughtfully left me goodies, and more goodies to refresh me on my rounds. Well, I still have a very long way to go, and," he sighed heavily, "I'm full." Pooh blinked his eyes rapidly in surprise. Being full was a feeling with he was not at all familiar. This was quite all right with him, however, because he'd always found the doing of a thing much more exciting than the having done part, especially when the one was doing was eating, whether breakfast or lunch or dinner or any small or large sort of smackerel in between. "And," Santa continued, "it's very important not to hurt anyone's feelings." He looked Pooh Bear in the eye. "Do you suppose you and your appetite could come along with me tonight and deal with some of this food?" A happy smile spread itself over Pooh's face, and his tummy agreed with particularly enthusiastic rumble. Santa smiled back, his eyes twinkling merrily. "Ho, ho, ho!" Santa laughed. "That sounds like a yes to me." The next thing Pooh knew, he was seated next to Santa in the toy-laden sleigh, wearing his slippers, nightshirt, and cap still topped with its snazzy red tassel, and he was snuggled comfortably beneath a fuzzy blanket. "Ready?" inquired Santa with a grin. Pooh nodded nervously. "I suppose I am." A slight flick of Santa's wrist sent the reindeer soaring into the air in an explosion of chiming sleigh bells. Within a very short time, Pooh was eating yam cake and root beer in front of the sleeping gopher's fire as Santa filled the stocking dangling from the mantel. At Tigger's, while the sounds of feline snoring resounded from the bedroom, Santa went about his business, and Pooh dined on oatmeal cookies striped with rows of chocolate chips. The snack at Kanga and Rue's house consisted of a great many very small peanut butter cookies and a dainty cup of lemon tea. By the time they left Eeyore's house and the remnants of his bowl full of brownies flying off into the world beyond the 100-acre wood, Pooh Bear was losing track of what was being eaten where. The night became a blur of whirling flights and good things to eat. One moment Santa was whizzing past the moon. The next Pooh was seated comfortably in one strange living room or another slurping noodles in China, sipping hot onion soup afloat with melted cheese in France, devouring Danish pastries in Denmark, and licking luscious ice cream in Iceland. Soon even the bottomless Pooh was unable to distinguish one country from another because all he knew was that he was truly full at last and couldn't possibly eat another bite. This might have made anyone else sad, but Pooh knew, as certainly as bees meant honey and Christmas meant Santa Claus, that tomorrow morning the arrival of breakfast would coincide with his being ready to eat it. He was, however, a bit uneasy about whether or not there would be anything at home to serve at the anticipated breakfast. "Don't worry, Pooh," laughed Santa as he clapped the bear back on the back. "He won't let any of this food go to waste." Therefore, as a bag was emptied of toys, it was refilled with all sorts of savory, sweets, stews, soups, and sauces. As this went on, Pooh cuddled comfortably beneath his blanket with a soft smile on his face and a warm feeling in his middle. The swoops and twirls of the flying sleigh, the wind rushing against his closed eyes, the ho-ho-hoing from Santa as he shouted encouragement to his reindeer blended together and drifted away until it all seemed like such a dream. Pooh sat up, suddenly wide awake, only to discover himself in his own bed with a sparkling Christmas morning shining through the windows into his bedroom. He didn't remember going to bed, but as Tigger would tease him, not remembering is the one o' the things Pooh Bear does best. It was all a dream, he decided, and a very nice one at that. Then he smiled and patted his middle. Such a good dream that even my tummy was fooled into thinking it's not hungry. His tummy responded with a very low rumble. "Well," Pooh chuckled, "not very hungry." Immediately, Winnie the Pooh jumped out of bed and, ignoring his slippers, went slipping and sliding across the polished floors into his kitchen. There he found not a single dish or pot or saucepan dirty or out of place. And his pantry, oh, his pantry, it was crammed from top to bottom with food from all over the world. "Oh my," breathed Pooh, wondering, "where did all this come from?" Then the tickle of recollection at the back of his mind burst forth into a giggle of remembering his wish list to Santa. It had included requests for as many mouth-watering delicacies as he could think of, and there they all were, filling his pantry and, of course, making his mouth water. "It's better than a dream," sighed Pooh, "unless, of course, it is a dream," he added with a puzzled frown. But whether it was a dream or merely a wonderful Christmas, which is pretty much the same thing, Pooh murmured happily to himself, "I hope neither one ends before I've eaten." Then the realization descended on the suddenly overawed little bear of what was an even more wonderful present than a pantry full of everything he'd asked for. What better way to celebrate Christmas than with a memory, even the memory of a dream, of helping someone like Santa Claus, who spent all of his time helping others? "What a special present!" exclaimed Pooh, as his tummy filled with a warm feeling and his heart beat just a bit faster. Because a happy memory or a good dream never wears out or needs to be filled up again. Pooh could hardly wait to tell his friends. As soon as he got dressed, he decided he was going to go visit every one of his neighbors in 100-Acre Wood and regale them with his adventure. Then the overflowing pantry caught Pooh Bear's eye. "Well," he said to himself with a chuckle, "right after breakfast." "Pooh Bear," asked Christopher Robin as their walk through the 100-Acre Wood continued, "why are you smacking your lips?" Pooh looked around, startled, and realized he'd only been remembering that breakfast was long, long time ago. "Oh," answered the disappointed but ever hopeful Pooh, "I was just thinking. We wouldn't happen to be on our way to breakfast, would we?" "Silly old bear," laughed Christopher Robin. "We're not here for breakfast. We're here to sing carols." Sing carols what? Asked the totally confused bear. Christmas carols, responded Christopher Robin. I don't believe I know her, said Pooh, straining to remember. Carols are not a person, Pooh, Christopher Robin said slowly. They're songs we sing at Christmas. Oh, said Pooh Bear, and what do we sing when Carol's not here? Christopher Robin put his arm around his best friend's shoulder. Don't worry, Pooh, he said, smiling affectionately at the bear. I'll explain it when all the others are here. Good, sighed a relieved Pooh. He liked Christopher Robin's explanations, even if he couldn't always remember them. They were like light in a dark room, and as everyone knew, light and Christmas were the closest of friends. Along with Carol, Pooh murmured happily to himself.
The end.